Whatever. All right.
Whatever.
That's where we are at this point.
Hey, it's a live mobile cast. That's what we do. You know, you roll with the punches. That's how it rolls.
Go with the flow.
Exactly.
We get a letter grade today. I think it would be like C-ish overall, right? Not an A or a B or a C.
I am a complete failure.
Well, no, because we'd have a 7-part question to answer about how we grade ourselves, Kenny. So, yeah, we would.
I mean, completely ridiculous. All right, if you want to Skype in, if it works, Skype in at Dawgs on the Run or call us at 216-431-3820. 216-431-3820. Again, we're talking about the Browns yesterday. A lot of people sounding off on the referees from yesterday's game. But, again, I'll go back to my initial thought. You can't blame referees for games. And you got to figure out, you know, somewhere along the line you needed to get 7.
I disagree with
you.
You can't blame the referees to a point.
Can't.
I mean,
come
let's
on,
be
Kenny,
honest. Their job is to get it right, and they got it wrong numerous times down the stretch.
Kenny, they got homered at the end, but if you recover the onside kick, you're not going to get homered.
I agree, but that play happens. And so then you come to the next play, and the Browns secondary makes a good defensive play that should not have been called pass interference. That's one of the worst pass interference calls I've seen in a long, long time. I don't know if they were trying to make up for when Gronkowski got mugged and they didn't call it earlier in the season. So they found, the Browns aren't going anywhere. Let's call pass interference here. I don't know what it was. That was a horrible call, and it changed the complexion of the game at that point.
But I don't even think it should have ever got to that point. That's my issue that I have with the whole thing. And, yes, they got screwed by the officials yesterday. There's no doubt in my mind. But I also, the way that defense played, and then all of a sudden to have Ray Horton decide to go soft when it's the biggest series of the damn football game, I do not understand. And I'm going to have to go back and watch that one series that led to the touchdown that they ended up getting the onside kickoff of because of the penalty at the 50-yard line. I don't know what kind of defense he was in. I don't know if he was a prevent. Looked like they were still rushing 4, but I don't know if they dropped the linebackers. I don't know what they did, but it was not the same defense that made Tom Brady look average for 3 3/4. And they put themselves in a situation to lose, and you're not supposed to be doing that on the road.
I hear you loud and clear, and I agree. We talked about not being able to close for the last 2 weeks, and that's on Ray Horton and his defense. However, they were still in a position to win the game. Even though they gave up that touchdown, they lost the onside kick. Brady throws that bomb into the end zone, and it's perfect coverage. You can't teach it any better than that. And then to give them the ball there on the 1-yard line, and they run the old Jerry Rice off the end play that they used to run in San Francisco for the touchdown, you know they're going to score on 1st and goal from the 1 or 2, whatever it was like that. But to give them the ball right there as opposed to the 30, should have been what, 2nd down and 10 from the 35, big difference, and makes it a lot easier for Tom Brady in that situation. I can't stand officials because I don't think they're held to a high enough standard in the NFL, and they have blown more calls this year. We don't know what the strike zone is as far as, where you're allowed to hit. Mike, I saw you guys talking about it last night with Coach Sam and the guys. Andy, you and I and Matt Wilhelm talked about it with the Buckeyes game a few weeks back. What is the strike zone? Where can you hit? Is it helmet to helmet if you hit your helmet in the midsection, or if the guy ducks his head and hits your helmet? We see pass interference calls. We see missed spots on footballs throughout the week. Officiating in the NFL this year has been horrendous.
All right, hang on. Matt Wilhelm's online. Matt, I really want your opinion on this. So let me go back to this, Kenny. Kenny, we can blame the officials for yesterday's loss. Fair?
They were a part of it. They are not the only thing to blame in the loss, but the officials were indeed a part of what took place yesterday. Without the officials' calls, the Patriots do not win. They don't win that game. They don't come back and win without the help of the officials, yes.
Okay, well, Kenny, here's where I am with this, and Matt's on the line too, and I'm looking at the poster behind you, and we got a guy who played in the game. I go back to that national championship game that Matt won with Ohio State that we won, and I listen to people around the country bitch and moan about the fact at the end of the game that Miami got dogged on a bad call. You know why Miami lost that game? Because Ohio State came out and kicked their ass in the beginning of the game, and the defense was amazing. So from that game forward, no matter when I listen or watch any game, I will never put the hands in the game of the officials. And so when people talk about that national championship game and want to complain about it, I'll say, you know what, Ohio State went out and did things before that play, and so don't put the game in the hands of the officials. And I'll say the same thing for yesterday. The Browns needed to not put the game in the hands of the officials at the end. If you recover the onside kick, it's over, and you've got nothing to complain about. Matt, you with me on that or not?
I definitely am with you, and I think that having been a player in those locker rooms who felt like they've been screwed over by referees or by some ill-advised calls or some things that did not go in their favor, and that might linger very quickly, right immediately after the game for a lot of the guys yesterday. But all in all, they're going to watch that film, and Ray Horton and Norv and Chud, they're going to point out time and time again, as you said, that the Browns had opportunity after opportunity, whether it may be a coaching decision or a drop ball or a different play called, the two-point conversion, not running it at that point, and maybe even just kicking it or, throwing the ball in to go up by 2. There's a lot of things that they're going to identify well beyond just an official because as a player, can we essentially control the referees? No, we can't. But we can control our body of work and what we go out there and do. And as you said, Andy, for 3.5 quarters, what that defense did to Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks in all of NFL history, I don't know why all of a sudden they deviated from that plan. And again, as you said, whether I would love to go watch it too and break it down, go soft or what kind of covers they were playing because it seemed like the seams were wide open and Brady was just comfortable in the pocket and throwing those laser beams we know he's capable of throwing.
Yeah, and you know what, too, Matt? I totally agree with you. And I would need to get your opinion on this because we talked about it already before you got on.
Hang on one second. I just want to give Kenny a chance to respond. Kenny, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, guys, don't get me wrong. It comes down to players making plays, but when it's taken out of your hands and the officials make the wrong calls, it affects the game. They aren't the only reason, but they were a big part of the reason why the Browns lost yesterday. I go back to what happened 58 minutes prior is over and done with. You can't change that. What happens next is what matters, and what happened there was great coverage by the Browns in the secondary, and they get called for pass interference. They made the right play on that play, and the officials whistled them and moved the ball to the 1 or 2 yard line, allowing New England to have a better chance to win the game. So I think the officials did. I'll stand by it, and I think officials can affect the outcome of games.
Okay, all right. I agree with that, but I do think you got to take some things in your own hands. Go ahead.
I think our officials are completely calling games scared now because of what the league has set up. And Matt, the strike zone, and the NFL has put themselves in a very tough and gray area right now as a defensive player when it comes to the strike zone because professional football players are paid to make plays and to put players to the ground. TJ Ward shot completely legal on Gronk yesterday, but because of the strike zone now, that lower part of players' bodies have come into question, and let's face it, you're talking knees, MCLs, legs, and as a former player, I'm wondering how you think about that, and for a defensive player to get ready to do his job, and the strike zone continues to get smaller, they're going to have to do something about that because I think it's only going to get worse, and you're going to lose some big stars.
I definitely agree, and I think my sentiments are exactly the same as Mike Ditka when he was on I think NFL Live. Prior to the season, he was asked the very same question, and he said, and I feel the same exact way. When I was a player, it's you can hit me in the head all day because I'll get up, i.e. wobbly, and I'm not worried about 40 years from now and whether I can remember what I had for dinner or where my keys are at. But if you hit me in my knees, my ankles, ACL, MCL, Achilles, all those things in my lower extremities, like we're going to see here with Rob Gronkowski, you're costing me money, now when I have that earning potential. And Rob Gronkowski, and again, he signed a big deal, and is he ever going to be able to recover and be the same? We don't know. He's already missed a significant amount of time with the other injuries. I think it's the back and his forearm. But he will not be in a Patriots uniform on game day probably till October of next football season. So, I'd rather have you hit me in my head than hit me in my knees because my knees and my wheels is what makes me the money.
All right, Matt, before we go, I do want to get your take on Ohio State and what happened on Saturday night.
Do you have the bleep machine ready?
We don't have to have a bleep machine on this, Matt. We don't.
Nope.
And there's no rules. You can drop F-bombs if you want. I don't care.
No, to me, I think I tweeted about this during the game. I think Michigan State owned that game. They came in confident and played physical. They had the swagger. They played like the number 2 team in the country, trying to win a football game to go play for a national championship. Ohio State seemed like they were on their heels the entire day. taking punches to the face, really never being able to punch back. Few times in the game did we really feel like we had, punched back Michigan State and were in control. We didn't have the swagger. We looked like we were, trying to not lose. We were playing to not lose the game, where Michigan State came out physical, aggressor, playing to win the football game and earn a lot of respect and go to the Rose Bowl, a spot, or Pasadena rather, a spot that Ohio State wanted to get in. But I think that, some play calling offensively, we ride high all year long, and all of a sudden we put the ball in Braxton's hands. I think that when I need to go get a tough yard, I'm giving the ball to a guy who's probably had one negative rush the entire season and who can roll forward for 4 yards every time he touches the ball, as opposed to a quarterback. Secondly, I think defense was atrocious for the second week in a row. Both teams from that state up north, basically threw the ball at will. I thought our defensive back played on their heels. There was Joey Bosa, a freshman not from the state of Ohio, played with the most pride, with the most heart, the most aggressive, the most physical the entire day. So I'm looking forward to his future. But Andy, you and I know this. Love Luke Fickell, love him as a person, love him as a coach. But I think at this point, Urban's going to do everything he's going to do to put a product on the field that can compete for a national championship, and they fell short. And so changes have to be made.
Well, Kenny said this Kenny and I talked about this after the game the other day. Did you ever think that you'd ever say that Mark D'Antonio could outcoach Urban Meyer? Because that's what happened.
No. I never. I'll say, does he have it in him? Yes. But I never thought I would see it on that stage. Maybe a week 6 Ohio State Michigan State matchup that doesn't really mean much, in the middle of the season. But with everything on the line, with as much championship credential that Urban Meyer has, having played in national championships and SEC championships time and time again, I never thought he'd get out-coached in that setting.
All right, Matt, thank you. Appreciate your time. Great stuff. I always appreciate your perspective, both as a player, as an analyst, as you are now these days. Thanks, Matt.
You got it, brother. Have a great day.
You too. All right, Matt Wilhelm joining us on the phone lines. And, Kenny, a lot of things that we've been talking about this morning, too. And, it was just a frustrating weekend. I mean, if you just want to put a bow on the whole weekend, and it's not just even, and you were at this game too, Mike, but to watch what happened, not only to the Browns, not only to the Buckeyes, Menor, boy, I mean, that was a great game, that D1 final.
Yep.
Glenville, a little bit of frustration there too. So other than the Cavs on Saturday night, it was a pretty rough weekend. And the Monsters had a decent weekend too.
Well, hey, Kirkland and St. V, let's give them some love. They ended up winning a state championship, so at least there was somebody there that did something well this weekend on the gridiron. But, yeah, my God, the Buckeyes, we watched that game together the other night, Andy, and I agree with Matt the whole way. How do you not feature Carlos Hyde in that game? And defensively, that secondary is atrocious. It really is, and it showed how much they missed Christian Bryant the last couple of weeks. He was the quarterback of that defense, and they really could have used him the last couple of weeks. And now you go to the Orange Bowl against Clemson. Okay, great, you win that. You might finish in the top 5, but it was national championship or bust for me this year, and it's a bust.
One of the other things, too, and just going, I know we're juggling around on some of the games we're talking here. It is hard to imagine that Ohio State doesn't have any depth at linebacker. And I think that's where Luke is ultimately going to pay the price. Because when you think about Ohio State football, the bread and butter of this school has always been great linebackers and rock-solid guys up front and superstar future NFL guys that are going to be DBs. Yeah. But it all starts with silver bullets. It all starts with linebackers. And when you talk about Saturday's game and the whole season, it's such an empty feeling to think there's no depth at linebacker for Ohio State.
They had one linebacker all year, really, guys. That's it. I mean, let's be honest. They had one linebacker all year, and his name was Ryan Shazier. Other than that, Curtis Grant, wasn't worth much, and he was hurt. Joshua Perry, inconsistent. Some of those 5-star kids that they recruited haven't developed. They had one good linebacker all season long at The Ohio State University, or linebacker U. That's not acceptable.
All right, we're going to come back to you in a couple minutes, Kenny. Right now, we're going to go over to Slide.